Hello, welcome to the Headliners. My name is Edward Mbeche. I'm the founder and CEO of Helen Technology. Today, I have my guest named is James Law. He's a co-founder and CEO of Saturday Drive, a business development company. So we're gonna have a great conversation today. Hey, James, how are you?
I'm doing great, Edward. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm
That's
excited.
awesome.
Gonna have a good conversation.
I know. That's awesome. How you been, man? You been good?
I have been good. I've been on a weight loss journey, and so I've been got my walk in this morning early. Feel good. Feel
Do,
invigorated.
do you count like how many steps you do and all that?
I track my steps with my watch,
Okay.
but I don't really worry about steps. My goal is I want to get at least 3 miles in a day, but I'm usually doing about 6 miles a day. So 6 miles
Oh,
every morning
that's
I
good.
walk, and then yeah, trying to get healthy, stay strong, so I can do what I do for as long as possible.
That's good. That's I wish it was an exercise for us, not the chemical stuff. Exercise for us, like hey, if you walk 1,000 steps, your hair start growing back.
That's fair. That's fair. That's one. It's the lifelong problem that no one has been able to solve yet.
No, like there's a joke they did about Elon Musk. If you look at Elon Musk like pictures a while back, they used to joke like because he was thinning hair too. So they're joking like he got so rich and out of respect, his hair just grew back.
I love it. I love it. Well, there's these places now that do these pieces, right? That they basically glue on your head that look amazing. We've come a long way if you're into that kind of thing, but
Yeah,
you still usually have to have something decent on the side
yeah,
to blend that into. Otherwise, and if you've been doing what I've been doing long enough,
yeah.
people will be like, "Wait, you just all of a sudden have hair?"
I don't
It's a culture shock.
listen, no, we put it off good. Me and you, we put it off good. We
I
our
agree.
head is shaped perfect for bald. And it's weird too, like the one you're mentioning, the people that glue the stuff on there. I'd be thinking like, I don't know if it rains, if you're sweating, I don't know how that thing works. Because you don't want to be
It
like, on a date and it starts sweating and that thing.
starts starts sliding back. Be quite a bit awkward, or worse,
Yeah.
sliding forward and falls in the soup. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Oh, that's horrible. And I know, imagine you on a date, and also the lady also has the fake weave. So you both just cheat, like tricking each other, like you don't know the real you.
You see how it all kind of the story goes, right? You get married,
Yeah,
you get comfortable, you get past the honeymoon, and then all the fake hair comes off, and you're like, wait, this is what I
you're like,
married?
who are you? You're like a new person, right? Oh man. Anyway, so as we jump in it, we're gonna have a lot of conversation talk. Like I know you help like business owner or like CEO and how to like kind of give them the tools for them to either improve and also motivate their team and things like that. But before we go into that, I wanna I wanna do this. Let's go back, kind of get to know who's James, right? Let's go. Where did you grow up? Like, how was your childhood? Were you bullied? Were you like, did you have good memory as a kid? Kind of,
Wow, you go way back.
yeah,
It's funny. I don't have a lot of memories when I was a young child. I have certain experiential memories, things like big things that happened, and I
yeah,
have a lot of spatial memory where I can kind of picture a scene. And I'll give you an example. I used to have this recurring dream when I was maybe 11, 12, 13 years old, and I'm wearing this like brown t-shirt that has like white rings around the sleeves and the collar and this white bubble like print on it. And I'm running around the house with this like stuffed big bird. And I'm just this little kid. And I keep having this dream. And I finally go to my mom and I'm like, I keep having this really weird dream that I'm like this old and this is what I'm doing. And she goes, pulls out a photo album, opens it up, and she's like, "Yeah, that was your birthday party of this particular
oh,
time." And
wow,
I'm wearing that same shirt, and there's the little big bird, and I'm like, "Wow!" So I have those kinds of like memories where they almost feel like a dream,
yeah,
but they're my life. It's a little weird.
Actually, that's funny too. For me, not necessarily a dream. For me, things is like I'll be like, man, I don't remember this time, whatever. And then once in a while, it will just pop up like, oh yeah, I did like this. But
Yeah.
it's like the memory. Like if you start telling me like, oh, you have to remember it, I don't remember. But those just kind of like it pop up somewhere. Just gonna be like, hey, you remember you did? I'm like, oh, you're right. Like kind of, wow, that's strange.
Yep.
So where did you grow up? Like
I grew up in upstate New York, a
upstate New
town
York?
called Rome, New York. A pretty
Oh,
historical town, kind of in between Syracuse and Albany.
mhm.
So kind of in that area along the kind of I-90 up in upstate New York. So I grew up there. I went to Catholic school for my first 3 years. Then I went to just a normal school, public school. I was bullied a lot. Actually talked about that. That's kind of funny. As a young kid, I was bullied a lot, and because I was scrawny. I don't look scrawny now,
Yeah.
but back then I was really skinny, like underweight, unhealthy skinny, and I used to get bullied a lot. Matter of fact, in fourth grade, I got into so many fights where I was simply the victim. And
Mhm.
because they had a no tolerance policy, I ended up getting kicked out of school because I was involved in the fight, even though my only involvement was getting beat up. So
Yeah.
my parents took me out of school and started homeschooling me
So
because they
was this like a boarding school or like just
No, this was just a public school, Fort Stanwix in
yeah,
Rome, New York.
yeah.
And I'd only been there for 1 year because I went through third grade in St. Peter's Catholic School.
Mhm.
So I did that up through third grade. So my first year in public school, and apparently I was not wired for it or something. I don't know what happened, but I got targeted by one kid in particular. And then that, of course, that you get the kind of the crowd effect starts to happen, and once one kid kind of sees you as inferior, everyone starts to kind of create this kind of vibe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, I went through fourth grade, got kicked out. I didn't say kicked out. I got a lot of out of school detention
Yeah.
because of fighting that I really wasn't
You're not even
fighting in.
yeah.
Yeah. So my parents took me out and started homeschooling me. And I did that all the way up until I went to college. I was
Mhm.
homeschooled. And then during that time, I did end up taking martial arts. I studied Taekwondo, Kempo, and Aikido to try just to build my own kind of confidence so that I didn't at least look like a victim.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that went a long way.
Yeah. Now you're like, I wish some will try some.
Yeah. Just try me
I
now.
wish
Now,
someone will try some.
Yeah. Luckily, as you
Yeah.
get older, at
Yeah.
least most people, you don't find yourselves getting into fights very often. And I
Yeah.
don't have to pull out my Taekwondo anymore. I
Yeah.
also
Yeah. No.
probably can't kick anyone without hurting myself. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little bit different now, unless like you're into drinking and all, just being a loud person and all that stuff. So let's talk about how you end up getting involved um, on this company, like that you started Saturday Drive
yeah,
for helping like business development, like company. Can you walk us through
absolutely.
how you end up? Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. So I've had a little bit of an entrepreneurial kind of drive to me my whole life.
Mhm.
I've started little things here and there. Did a design company, did freelance design work for a while. That's kind of how I got into the tech space, was doing design work. A friend of mine gave me a bootlegged copy of Photoshop at the time, and I started playing with it, and I was like, ooh, this is fun, and I have a good eye and I have good ideas. And so I got into design work, and then finally that led into web work and designing websites and things like that. And so I did that for a while. And kind of the shorter version is I was working at a credit union,
Mhm.
and my CEO asked me to kind of come in and consult on a project with a nonprofit that he worked with. And as we were discussing the project, he said, will you just do it? Like, will you work on their project? I'm like, yeah. I mean, I was doing freelance stuff on the side. When your CEO asks you to do something, you're like, hey,
Sure.
this gets me in good with the big guy. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I took the project, and in that we built a piece of software to help them do what they do. That became our first product, and we
Mhm.
launched that. And then this is a story I tell people too, especially if you've ever read like the E Myth. That book, he talks a lot about this kind of dilemma of entrepreneurs when you get started to do something and you want to start a business. You generally do it because you're a designer, you're a developer, you're a writer, you're a creative of some sort, or you love sales,
Yeah.
whatever it is. You start doing a business because you like those things. And if your business is successful, you find yourself having to hire people to help you continue to do that thing that you love to do.
Exactly.
But if you continue to hire people, you find out I'm not doing that thing I love to do as much anymore. I'm spending a lot of my time managing people and thinking about processes and systems and dealing with drama and like all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of the few people, I think, that as that happened and I found myself managing people and working about systems and thinking about strategy,
Yeah.
I found my sweet spot. I'm like, this is the stuff I love. Like, I like dealing with people. It's funny. I'm an introvert, but I love people and I love seeing people succeed and helping them kind of navigate that process. So it's like, as our company started to grow and we started to add more people, I found really what was my true passion, which was not design and it wasn't software. And I own a coffee company and it's not coffee and it's not brick and mortar. It's helping people. And so I started to focus all my attention on that.
Actually, you might be right. It might be very few people with that ability. Like, because you gotta remember when you have a team, if you're building a team, like you're saying, you managing people is just a different animal, because you're talking about you got to deal with every personality, and not just personality but what motivate them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at like, okay, this person is motivated by this person so it's like you find the sweet spot to kind of mold everybody to be like a team working together. So when you do that, do you focus more from the top, or do you focus more like from the team when you're trying to kind of help a startup? Let's say, because you don't just help startup, you help organization also, right? Like a big company, whatever, right?
Yeah, I mean, I help anyone who reaches out. I have a lot of people who reach out to me and just ask questions, just want to pick my brain. They're dealing with something. They reach out to me on one of my social channels. We have a conversation. And so it's a different environment with everyone and how we deal with the situation. I generally deal first with leaders because ultimately, if you don't change the leadership culture of an organization, you're not going to be able to change anything else.
Yeah.
Like it's an uphill battle and an almost impossible battle. If the leaders don't want to go there, then it doesn't, I hate to say it, sometimes it doesn't matter what the people in the organization want. So it really requires a changing of the leadership's mind and fixing things at the top first. And once you fix things at the top, then we can start working down into the systems of the organization, into the teams, into the individuals, and start working there. So we start generally at the leadership level, and then we move down.
Mhm. So is this when you like, let's take example, you go into this company, they have maybe 100 employees, right? So walk me through, like, how does this process look like? Do you put people, like, is it more like a training, like, hey, Thursday we're gonna have this for half an hour, 2 hours, or how does it look like, kind of like
It's
when you
it's
get in?
usually tailored for the organization. So generally speaking, the first conversation is with the primary leader. And so I want to spend some time with the primary leader, get to know them, get to know the company, get to know the vision, get to know their why, their values, what makes them tick, how they see their company, because that's usually sometimes where some of the problems are, is like how they see the company is maybe twisted or a little bit off, fuzzy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I want to really understand that from a leadership level. Then you go from there, you meet the rest of the leadership team and you start developing the leadership team and getting to know them, building relationships and one-on-ones and building relationships. So it's a combination of things. There's not one way you solve any particular problem, work with any organization. It's, coaching with the leaders, it's training the leadership team and understanding culture, and then it's even going down into the team level and saying, hey, how do we improve communication, improve the feedback loop so that team members feel like they can safely say what they're feeling in the organization, and leaders listen and respond to it in a safe way so that there is true lines of communication being open and where it's creating understanding throughout the organization. So it really just depends on what the situation is.
Okay. Do you get to partner with like the HR department when you get in there, kind of because sometime I know like most of the time HR is kind of handling all this stuff within the company. Do you get to work together with HR
Yeah,
department?
sometimes it's HR. Even in my own company, I'm the CEO, but I have a chief people officer who kind of handles our people ops department, and he has staff underneath him. And so when even in my own company, I work very closely with the people ops department when we talk about things like how do we evaluate our goals? How do we evaluate whether or not our team is feeling fulfilled? They feel satisfied with the work that they're doing and things like that. We're digging really deep into that on the people ops level because they're kind of the force that's going to help build spread that communication and make those connections for us. So yeah, people ops as an HR are an important part. I'd say more people ops. HR tends to be more of the legal side. You've probably heard it said, right? HR isn't your friend if you're an employee. Like HR is not necessarily your friend in most corporations. They're
Yeah.
there to protect the company, to make sure the company doesn't get into legal trouble because they said something they weren't supposed to say, promised something they weren't supposed to promise, or something else, right? Whereas for us, we shift more towards, and people ops is different than HR, but it's the other side of the same coin, and it's people ops. It's there for the people. We're there to develop people and help people feel fulfilled and energized. And so I like to deal with people who have a people ops department or are looking to start a people ops department to become more efficient, more healthy.
Okay. Okay. How has like the pandemic affected this? Do you see, because now probably it was a little bit different because maybe you might be going to this company, they have, all the employee in the office. Now you have people working remotely, working from home and all that. Has this affected, or how did you pivot like to kind of fit this the new normal? How did you end up kind of did you find a way to pivot to the new normal kind of thing? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of this was birthed out of the pandemic. So, interestingly enough, our business, Saturday Drive, was a co-located business. We all worked in the same office, and we had a building in downtown in our town here in Cleveland, Tennessee, and we all worked together. And what happened is right before the pandemic, around 2019, fall, end of summer, beginning of fall of 2019, we acquired another business. And that particular team was fully distributed. So we're fully co-located. They were fully distributed and had team members in London and in France and just all over. And so when we acquired them, we had to make some decisions. Do we want to do a hybrid company where some of us are on site and some of us are distributed? And I didn't like that idea because while there are people who do hybrid well, hybrid is a struggle between an us and them kind of mentality. People who aren't in the office often feel separate from the people who are in the office, like they are less than, even though they are not. They feel that way, and sometimes there's communication issues. I mean, there's a number of issues, and it can be done well. There are people who do hybrid really well. That's not my specialty. Matter of fact, I didn't think I would be great in a hybrid environment. So what I decided was I'm just going to move completely remote. We're just going to go completely distributed. So we got rid of our office and we sent everyone home, asked them what they needed to get settled in their space, and we started being fully remote, the entire team. So as we made that transition, we started to realize lots of other companies during the pandemic are now being forced to make this transition. They didn't want it. Yeah. Most companies like ours usually don't want to move to remote. They like having their office space. They like that, especially among leaders, because leaders like the control of having everyone in an office space. And we started to see a lot of businesses starting to struggle, even small businesses, starting to struggle with how do you take what you have in a on-site location, a co-located team, and provide that to a distributed team and make it feel still cohesive and still create that connection and collaboration that you had when you could all sit around the boardroom table and debate the next big thing you're working on. And so that's where I started developing some of this stuff. I started to develop it also because I started to see some of my own team members, and I started to think about when I started my business, what I was looking for, which was ultimately, I was looking for flexibility of schedule. I was looking for independence. I was looking for autonomy to work on things that I loved and cared about. And I started looking at my team, and my team wants that same thing. Like they all want those things. And so I started to say, what happens if leadership in a company actually pushes back from what they think their agenda is and says, how do I focus on my team members and give them all the things that I know I wanted when I started my business in the first place? And what I found was pretty amazing. I found that team members who you prioritize their fulfillment, if you prioritize what's important to them, making sure that they're not doing 80% of a job that they hate and only 20% that they love, and try to flip that around, help them work on 80% of stuff that they love. And yeah, there's going to be some stuff that I don't like, but that's a small percentage of the work. When you focus on that, focus on fulfillment, focus on a flexible schedule and say, a perfect example is like, I don't ask team members to take PTO for doctor's appointments. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, just go to your doctor's appointment. I don't need you to tell me when you go to the doctor's appointment. I have no expectation that you're working 9 to 5. You work when you work. I don't care. We set clear expectations.
You finish what need to be done, right?
Yeah. We set expectations. We agree, the manager or the leader with the team, we agree, what do we want to accomplish and what is a reasonable deadline to accomplish that? And once we find it, we dial it in, we get into agreement, and we say, that's the expectation. I don't care if it takes you 3 hours a day or not. Like, it doesn't matter to me. So by doing that, we found that you get a team who really takes ownership. They're not just employees in a business. They're owners, they're stakeholders, because it's giving them the life they wanted and that you wanted when you started your own business. And so that's kind of where this all birthed out of.
Actually, that's a great point, because I was reading one lady, she posted on LinkedIn. She works from home now, and she worked from home, but she was doing the hybrid. So she worked from home and then she go to the office. So the day that she was supposed to go to the office, she'd get to the office and she worked only for 3 hours and finished everything. So she was just sitting there for the rest of the 5 hours doing nothing, just walking around. So it's like, yeah, like maybe with the new normal, is like kind of finding, like, trusting your employees, but also I think also it can bring really happiness, like the happiness to employee. Like, let's say if you work for a company and you say, hey, I live maybe in Cleveland, like you just threw me a curveball, say Cleveland, not
Tennessee,
not Ohio, but Tennessee. I was like, oh, Cleveland, Tennessee, I never heard of it. But so you live in Cleveland, you're like, hey, you know what, on Thursday evening or maybe Monday evening, I'm going to fly to Miami, and then I'm going to be in Miami enjoying vacation, but during the day, I'm going to work. And then in the evening, I just tour the city. So it's like you're almost combining a vacation by you working. So it's like just perfect match for this remote thing.
Yep.
Question, we go back to this. That brings me back to about a week or 2 weeks ago. I was calling customer support for this company I'm not going to mention. But when I call this customer support, and all I hear is kids in the back, and she's like, excuse me, hey, stop yelling. So how do you, like, that kind of, like, I was kind of a little bit annoyed, but also I understand, okay, you work from home now, but how do you, with the customer support, how do you control that if people work from home, from being distracted and be able to do and offer the best customer support instead of end up annoying a customer on the call?
It's hard, right? I get it. I'm not gonna pretend that it's easy. I remember when we first went remote, I didn't have a dedicated office, so I was kind of upstairs in our dining room, and I would just take over that room. But when the pandemic hit, my son was home all day and he was running around, and I don't want to tell him like everything is off limits and you can't go here and you can't go here and you can't make noise. I don't want to make his life miserable, but I also needed privacy and I needed to be able to take calls, and I had podcasts I was either hosting or guesting on. And I can't have all of this going on. So how do you navigate that? And then you talk about things later like those, some of my stuff wasn't even business critical. Support, right, is business critical. How do you deal with a situation like this? And every company does it different. Some companies say, hey, we totally fine that you work from home, but you need to have some sort of daycare or something set up for your children if you're going to do that, because you are working, in that case, they're probably working a shift of support. And so during that time, arrangements usually need to be made. Sometimes companies will pay for that and say, hey, we get it. Like, we will extend and be a part of that, partner with you on that. I have found, and maybe I'm wrong, and I think you spoke to it a little bit, the world is changing. And I think people respect that we all have difficult and challenging lives, and it's not cookie cutter anymore. And so kids are in the background. That happens, right? It is entirely possible that while we are talking right now, my son might run down here. Although I've trained him pretty well, he may run down here to get my attention for something. That's life. That's the life we live in. And I think that's the life we want to live in, right? We want people to have rich lives with families and don't want to take away from that. But we do have to figure out how we work. And I think that's where I train team members. I will talk to my teams and say, all right, here's how we create some separation. Here's how we schedule that. Now, luckily, I don't have to deal with that often because my support for our products are email, and we don't promise immediate interactions. And so we're paced well, and the team can still answer tickets whenever they want to. And like you said, they can go and sit on the beach and answer support tickets if they want to, because they're doing it over email. But those are challenges. And here's the thing, there are some stuff that I don't know how to solve yet. I'll be completely honest. There are some issues with distributed and remote work in this culture today, even as we're coming out of a pandemic and people still want to work from home. There are problems I don't know how to solve yet. But here's what I know. Leaders are supposed to work on the hard things. And this is a hard thing, but that doesn't mean we don't work on it. We keep working on it. We keep experimenting with it. We will solve the problem eventually, but we can't just say because something's hard, well, better get your butt back in the office because this is hard stuff.
So one of the other thing too, I was kind of thinking so with my startup, I have this company where I'm trying to figure what do I do do I get an office? So one of the things I was talking first, I went to this building. I'm trying to talk to them about renting this space, office space, but they still have this price, like for them, almost thinking like it's still like thriving business for them to rent this office for so much. And I'm looking at them like half of the building is empty, and you're trying to charge me prime time kind of price, kind of like, so high. So I'm stuck in trying to figure, do I open this office because so my company is attached to a customer service element where we need to train. It's fine. People can work from home. But we still need to train them to get to that, to be able to be like, okay, now I know what I'm doing. I can work from home now. Or so do we rent space, or like, meaning do we rent the office space, or do we end up just renting like a hotel banquet? What would you advise for a startup like that?
Not knowing at all the dynamics of your particular service that you provide and the support that will need to be done. So I preface all of what I'm about to say based on that. The first thing I would say is I would challenge the idea that I need to get them in person in order to train them. I would start by challenging that idea, and I'd ask myself, why? What are the key components? Is it because the thing that we're dealing with is a difficult topic? Is it something that could be solved with more extensive video tutorials and more of a learning management system training and onboarding? Is it something that could be done over video calls with a trainer, or a combination of those things? Like, what are we going to do in person? And is there a digital alternative to that? That's the first thing I would do, is just question, can I do this digitally? Probably 9 times out of 10, that answer is probably yes. It's a little harder, right? It's more work because you got to produce all the work and you got to write the scripts and record the videos and schedule calls and have, whether you have group calls or one-on-one calls, you have to do all that. That would be the first thing I would do. From there, I think the next solution is to think about pop-up training. I think you have the right idea, right? It's like you say, hey, we're going to all meet at this hotel in this town. I've rented their banquet hall or whatever, or they have boardroom space. A lot of them have meeting space. I'm going to take some meeting space and we're going to have all day training for 2 days. And that's what we're going to do. And then we'll all go home and you'll have everything that you need. That's a great alternative. I wouldn't lock yourself into anything permanent. Unless you think you're going to be training people 24/7, 7 days a week, 4 weeks a month, and 12 months a year, that's a lot of overhead for just this purpose of training that you're only going to say do every quarter or every month or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So it's a lot of, you get to save a lot of just money for that too, because now you're shedding all these expenses. That's good. That's good. There's a lot of things. I'm thinking, just for me, I'm thinking a lot of things that I can do. I guess it's one of those things too. You'd be like, hey man, I just want to have a nice shiny office so people can be like, hey, you want to come to my office? So it's more like an ego thing, I guess. You kind of be like,
I was there. I had a great office, by the way. I had this really nice TV built into the wall, and I had my standing desk and great art and logos made out of wood on the wall. It looked all fancy. It was a nice office. It was hard to give that up. But I am healthier mentally, emotionally, and physically now than I was when I had the office. That office actually was a coffin. It was killing me slowly and burying me alive because it was keeping me constrained into a life within 4 walls. And I wasn't able to kind of break out of that and find what worked for me. Now I can go and walk for an hour and a half in the morning. I can go in the middle of the day to the coffee shop and stretch and write, and changing locations when I change the task that I'm working on is a huge release for me. And I'm healthier because of it.
That's good. So not necessarily just emotional draining. So this is kind of help for people to more. Actually, it's really good. You're more calm. You're not stressed. Like, oh, I gotta rush to work. So be like, hey, just gotta put a nice clean T-shirt if I'm gonna be on a video, and with a short pajama pants, whatever, and just be on video there, just kind of relaxing. That's good. So let's talk about. I know you talk about. What exactly? I'm trying to figure a way to ask this question. You talk about circle fulfillment model. What exactly is circle fulfillment model you talk about?
Sure. So this is a theory that I have been developing right in the beginning of the pandemic. I started to kind of work this thing out, and it is still a work in progress. So the name is subject to change, and a lot of other things are subject to change. But ultimately, what I determined was, we get a lot of companies that say, what you need to focus on is employee engagement. Are your team members engaged? Are they engaged? Are they engaged? Right? And I don't know that engagement is enough. Yes, does the team communicate and talk often, and do they get their work done? And I think there's something deeper than that. And I started to think about what is beyond engagement. When you think about your employee experience, what is the experience that you're trying to give your team members? And this comes back to what I talked about earlier. When I went out and started my own business, I was looking for certain things, and ultimately I was looking for fulfillment. I wanted to end my day, and this is the best way I think I can describe it. When I came to the end of my day, I wanted to be full and not depleted. I wanted to be like a race car that drove into the gate at the very end of the race and just hit its brakes and just like peeled in and spun around and had all this energy and it was over. Like that was the day. And I'm excited to rev my engines and start again tomorrow. And I didn't always feel like that in the jobs that I had. And my guess is people listening also do not feel like that in the jobs that they have. They get to the end of the day and they're tired. It's why people don't work out when they get home. Like they're like, oh, I'll work out when I get home. And you get home, you're like, man, I've been sitting at a desk all day and I'm exhausted. I'm wiped. I don't have any energy to do it. And I was like, well, what's wrong with this? Like, why am I coming to the end of my day and I just feel depleted? Well, I want my team members, the people, anyone who works for me or with me, I want them to come to the end of their day and feel full, fulfilled. So I started to ask myself, what does fulfillment look like? What is fulfillment in the workplace specifically, but maybe everywhere? What does fulfillment look like? Now, the truth is what I do know is I cannot tell every single person what's going to make them fulfilled. Right? I can't do that. Fulfillment can look very different for a lot of different people. But in my conversations with my team and other entrepreneurs and all people I come in contact with, when I ask them about fulfillment, I usually find these three things. I find somebody who has found passion, somebody who has found a purpose, and somebody who is making progress. So these are three things that ultimately, there may be other factors, but they all had these three things. So I started to break that down and think about, all right, in my company, how do I measure that? How do I measure if somebody has passion or has purpose or is making progress? So what we started doing is we started asking our team three questions. They're simple questions. One, do you love the work that you do? Like, do you love it more than you hate it? Like on a scale of 1 to 4, I like to get rid of like 1 to 5 because I don't like threes. I don't like neutrals. So 1 to 4, you got to choose. You're either not or you are. You're on one side of it. You're either being depleted or you're being filled. Which is it? And so I asked them, do you love the work that you do? Do you believe the work that you do matters? Do you believe there's any significance to it at all? Yeah. And then finally, do you see the impact that you're having on your work? And I think, especially in the workplace, if somebody can say yes to all three of those questions, then they're not going home at the end of the day going, thank God I got rid of that, got away from that job. I'm so glad the day's over and I don't have to think about work anymore. They probably go home and talk to their spouse or their partner and their kids, and they're like, yeah, I did this really exciting thing, and this is a really cool thing, and we're solving this problem, and we're going to figure out this next thing, and I'm really excited about the work that I have to do tomorrow. Weekends aren't an exit or an escape from the work week. They are a way to recharge and rejuvenate and have more freedom, sure, maybe. But at the end of the weekend, you don't have a case of the Mondays. You're excited to go into work and take on that next challenge. And so I measured those three things by asking those questions of everyone on my team. And so that's where it kind of started. It's like, hey, what is fulfillment? How do I measure it? And what are the components of it, the drivers of fulfillment? And then how do I measure it? And that's kind of where it all started.
I guess, like, as I'm listening to you, like when you go in there, ask a question, if you're going into a company, you're trying to help them. I have worked for some really horrible companies, like where you're scared for retaliation to speak up, right?
Yeah.
So probably if you came to that company, you asked me, probably I would lie to you, be like, oh yeah, this is great. This is.
Well, I'll tell you, when you're starting,
yeah,
you want to do this anonymously.
Yeah.
If you're starting with a green company who's never even thought about asking their team members, hey, like, are you fulfilled in your role in this company? Like, do you feel energized by this? If you've never asked that question at a company before, I would start anonymously. Yeah. Because probably there's not enough trust between team members and leaders to ask that question point blank. And now in my company, we ask that open face, not anonymous. Everyone puts their name on it and they talk about it. But we've spent years establishing a level of trust that says people are more important to us than profit. People are more important than our products. We focus on taking care of our people. And for us, that means as a company and as leaders, our team even comes before our customers every time. If I have to choose between a customer and my team member, and if my customers are listening, I'm sorry, my team member comes first. Yeah. Because I can't run, this business doesn't exist without my team. And so I have to take care of them. I have to take care of them.
It's got employee-centric company, right? You,
Absolutely.
if your team is happy, they're gonna make your customer happy. If you have
Absolutely.
your team not happy, so there's a possibility it's not gonna be a good experience for the customer. Um, which do you, so you offer your service nationwide, right?
Sure.
Yes. So which do you prefer more? Do you prefer working with a startup or do you prefer working with an established company first?
I generally like startups because I understand startups a lot better.
Okay.
I am a startup. I'm quite a few years away from starting up, but we still have we still try to retain that kind of startup culture, a lot of innovation, a lot of experimentation. That's one of the things. We just had our team summit a little while ago, back in May, and we had all the team together. And a big part of the talk was learn to take risks, take chances, and don't be afraid to fail. Like, it's okay to have an idea, to try it, and it doesn't work out. That's called entrepreneurship. Like, that's what we do. We experiment, we try it, we test it, and what works we double down on, and what doesn't work we toss aside. We try to learn what we can from it, but we toss it aside and we try the next experiment. We just keep creating these, we keep having these hypotheses of like what we think is next, and we create experiments around that. We just keep testing it, right? It's a very scientific method. Entrepreneurship is a very scientific method if you do it right. And so I have that conversation with my team. So I love that startup energy that's willing to experiment. That's, I think, the big part. Startups are generally willing to experiment. And I'll go a bit further. I like to work with bootstrapped startups more than anything, because honestly, once you've taken money, right, you have a whole other set of competing objectives, and culture is not going to always be your most thing unless you have a really good investor, right, who's really going to push that for you. Culture is not the thing they care about, right? They care about that hockey stick. They want to see something grow and take off fast. They want to see what the money potential is. And when I come into a company, I want to see what the people potential is.
Perfect. So with I know when you're coming into a company, you're helping the leaders to kind of create almost like a company culture, right? So by helping them, so there's two things I wanted to ask. One, have you ever dealt with just a horrible person, like a horrible CEO? Because I know there's not even all this startup or whatever. There's always gonna be one bad apple, right? Have you ever dealt with this? Like, no, this, oh, you're just like, you know what? We're just gonna stay because for the money, but this is like a horrible person. The company culture is horrible. Can we help them to design? And the second question will be, is it different now because now you have this remote culture where people are working remotely, and then you have people who works, they're still company that they have people who works um, in the office or in whatever. Like, um, are this can this company culture be a little bit different because there's an absence? One has an absence of kind of like in your face where everybody is interacting with each other. Everybody gotta be trained about sexual harassment, how to be nice to each other. You see what I'm saying? Kind of
Yeah.
like a yeah. Is it like a different? Let's go first with the first question.
Yeah.
Yeah, with horrible people, you're like, this person is never gonna change to bring like a good culture to the.
I will tell you, I've never dealt with anyone quite like that directly. And the reason is they won't talk to me, because I am all about being a learner, and you have to be teachable. And if you're not teachable, as a matter of fact, I mean, I've learned things in this conversation from you. I've learned conversation from every guest I have on my podcast. I learn things from my team members all the time where I'm like, whoa, I didn't see that. Like, leaders have to be learners all the time. So the minute you start resisting and saying, I already have it all figured out, I already know you're not the right person to talk to with me, because you're just going to put up a wall. And so what I would say is, what I would do in that situation is I just be frank and tell them exactly what it is. I don't need anyone's money. Most of my consulting I do right now, I do for free. I don't do like this. I'm rebranding, and I'm doing a whole big project to start earning some revenue from it. But what I have, everything I've done up to this point, I do as a labor of love because I love small businesses. I want small businesses to succeed. I love to see entrepreneurial spirit, and I know what it does for communities and for families. I think it's exciting to see that happen. So I do this because I love it. And so I don't, if you don't want to, if you're going to be obstinate and fight me on it, I'll
Yeah.
just tell you how it is and walk away. Like, it's fine by me. Like, if you don't want to change and you don't want to fix it, then
Yeah.
don't. It's all right.
And we go back to the compound culture with the two different,
Yeah.
um, uh, with the one in the office, one not in the office. These two different. How can you? Oh, I'm trying to figure like because it has to be a little bit different culture, because one it has people who are in the office and one people who are remotely who never come to the office company.
Right. And the truth is, like, it's the stuff that I talk about works in both environments. Now, I come at it from a distributed culture, and a lot of the stuff that I put together and that I think about is because I'm in a distributed culture. But, the truth is, what you do in a distributed culture transitions and applies very much more into a co-located culture than vice versa. Because we try to do it the other way, right? Lots of businesses are like, well, we're not in the office. Everybody's working from home, but I can't see anybody's butts in the seat. I don't know who's in front of the computer. So we're going to put keyloggers on their computers and mouse trackers and eye trackers. And we're going to track all of what they're looking at on their screen. And like, what you're doing is trying to take what was true in a co-located, what you thought was true, it wasn't actually true, but what you thought was true in a co-located environment, and that is if they are being active at their desk, then they're probably getting work done, and that's good enough. And you're trying to push that into a distributed culture, and it's not true. Like, it doesn't work that way. What you have to do is have clear objectives, clear goals, clear outcomes that you're reaching for, and know how to measure those things. And then you just measure them. And it doesn't matter whether somebody's sitting at their computer, sitting at the beach, working on their phone. It doesn't matter where they are or how they're doing it, as long as the work is getting done. So going from co-located to distributed, it doesn't work. You can't just take what you did in the office and move it to distributed. But you can take what you do distributed and move it into the office, and it can have huge benefits on your culture. So when I talk about culture, we talked about these 3 Ps, right? Purpose, progress, and passion. Do you love the work that you do? Do you believe it matters? And can you see the impact that you're having? Well, here's what I know as a leader, whether I'm co-located or distributed. I can't go to my team and make them passionate. I can't do that. I can't give them a purpose. Like, I can't really connect them to that purpose. And I can't actually force them to make progress towards anything, right? But here's what I can do. And this is, the theory is of this Venn diagram. So if you can picture a Venn diagram, 3 circles that overlap, right? On the outside, these are the things that I can control. I can give my organization more clarity. I can give them more clarity on the vision, the strategy. I can give them more clarity on our values and our purpose. I can give them more clarity on our processes and systems and how we do things. I can create tons of clarity, right? I can create connection, right? I can connect people to one another, team members to managers, managers to team members, all the way up the chain of leadership to customers, to all these other things. I can create connections, right? I can connect them to mentors, to training, whatever it may be. I can create lots of connections. And I can facilitate collaboration. I can make it an easy environment for people to work together and cross-departmental teams so that we're getting lots of ideas and increase the diversity of the organization so that greater collaboration and different ideas that we would not otherwise have can come to light. I can do those things as a leader. And here's what I know. If I give my team clarity, and if I give my team connection, and I give my team true collaboration, they will find passion, purpose, and progress.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Jim Slows. As you're talking, my mind is going all over. I'm thinking about um, people or company that they do sales who who seems like they almost like they are more only driven by sales, always gotta hit that sales. So it's like if you don't hit that sales, like not good. So it's like my head is kind of looking around like, have you ever dealt with company like that also, like where really all they care is about sales?
I certainly witness them all the time, and I interact with them as a customer and as a peer,
Right.
but not as far as coaching. Here's the thing: sales are important for everyone. Depending on your company, that may be outbound sales or inbound sales, right? Like our company, we don't do any outbound sales discovery. To much of the people on LinkedIn's chagrin, as they keep reaching out to me saying, "Can I help you with your outbound sales? Can I help you with your outbound sales? Can I help you with your outbound sales?" I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I don't do outbound sales, and I
yeah.
think if you like looked into me long enough, you'd know that we don't do that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But sales are important, but I think you still set expectations, right? Being a people first organization, which is really what I'm all about, right? Because our chief core value is people first. And so being a people first organization doesn't mean we don't have revenue goals and we don't have profit goals and we don't have savings goals, we don't have sales goals. We have all of those goals, but we're realistic about setting them. We recognize that we are still people who have lives, and we try to structure our businesses in a sustainable way. That's the problem. I think everybody wants to scale their business, but nobody wants to scale it sustainably. I keep thinking about all of the entrepreneurs that I know who I've watched it happen to, who started a business and then just grew super, super fast, took on money, took on funding, whatever, and they built it really, really fast. And then they got replaced as the CEO because they grew too fast for them to keep up to be able to lead the organization in the first place.
So they
So
did
there's
not
something about
they did
scaling
not grow. Yeah,
sustainably,
yeah, yeah. So they did
you
not
know.
give time to grow. Like, so there's a process. You cannot just, so you gotta start crawling, walking, then running. They just took from crawling to just
They're in a
marathon.
jet plane, and basically the investors said you're not fit to run this company anymore.
Yeah.
It's too big. Like you
They did
can't
not.
handle. You don't have the experience for it. But if you scale sustainably,
Mhm.
you grow with your company as a leader. You develop the skills and you adjust and you go through the same evolution that your company goes through, so that when it is big, well, you've got the experience to handle it because you grew with it.
Oh, yeah.
And
You see,
that's to me
I
the
never,
healthiest way to go.
yeah, I never thought about that, which is really true because you need to give a breathing room and grow the company while you're learning all this stuff. By the time it becomes so big, you already have all this experience. That's so true. That's so true. That's really good. So let's talk about what suggestion would you give to people that called rich on LinkedIn, trying to earn business with other LinkedIn for connections. Because I know, like you mentioned, like people are reach out to you without even reading what you do. It's like, what would you suggest them if you were to leave a suggestion for them?
Yeah, I would say this. The best business partnerships are built on relationships first. So when people reach out to me, the people that I am most likely to connect with are the people that say, "Hey, I saw your video on this, I heard your podcast on this topic, and I wondered if I could pick your brain and ask you some questions around that topic. I'm interested," right? Show interest in the person that you're wanting to connect with. Get to know them. And by doing that, you're going to actually get to know their business, right? Because what entrepreneur doesn't like to talk about their business and
Right.
want to talk about what they're doing? And then you build a relationship, not because I'm trying to sell you anything, because I'm trying to get to know you. Now, this is the hard part, right? You have to do it with the intention of, I want to build relationships and I don't need to get anything out of it. And then if the opportunity comes where it is mutual that we can help each other,
Yeah.
I can make that ask because I've established a relationship. But my guess is that whoever you talk to is also going to ask you about your business and what do you do and learn about it. And you're going to get to pitch them anyway, even without like going in with the hard sell. If you call me up and say, "Hey, I do this, I want to help you fix your outbound sales," I'm going to be like, "I don't do outbound sales," right? But
Yeah.
if you get on a call with me and you say, "Hey, I really loved what you said about this topic, and I wonder if I could ask you some questions about it." Yeah, let's talk about it. I get on those calls every day. So I get on a call and they ask me about my business, and I think this person is really nice. I like this person. They've got a good personality. They got a good vibe. And so I start asking them, "Well, what do you do? Tell me about your business. What does that look like? How do you help people with their outbound sales?" Well, look what you just did there. You've got somebody who's now asking you to pitch them on what you do because you first showed interest in them. So establish relationships, show interest in other people,
Yeah.
and you will be surprised at how much they find interest in what you do. And then if they need your services, who am I going to go to if I need outbound sales, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the relationship that I have of somebody who knows that stuff. That's what I do when I want design work. I go to the designer that I know and have a relationship with. When I need consulting on marketing or SEO, I have people that I know personally that I go to and I ask for their advice and I pay them for their services. That's what we do.
Perfect. Perfect. Let's leave. Can you leave 3 cornerstones of, like, let's say, what are the 3 cornerstones of motivation? Let's leave like those. Let's do this as the last question. If you were to leave that the cornerstone motivation for entrepreneur or startup, what are the 3? Oh, sorry, I was reading Swire, so I said, "Love your strategy and networking." he loves what you just said. Yes. So, what are the 3 cornerstone of motivation?
So the 3 cornerstones of motivation are those outer circles, and they actually help you build them. And you see there's overlap, right? They're clarity,
Summarize them.
collaboration, and connection.
Perfect. Let's do this. Summarize, because I know we've been talking for almost 1 hour. Summarize for listener. What does Saturday Drive business do? Saturday
So
Drive. Just summarize, like what do they call? They call like a pitch elevator. Let's do
an elevator pitch. Saturday Drive is a business development firm where our goal is to build businesses by building culture, both in our own businesses and other small businesses that we build relationships with. So
Perfect. And this actually is a good way to kind of talk to James, because he loves this. So he's taking he will talk to you just to give you some advice. So if you want to talk to him, James, how can people find you?
well, you can find me on any social media by searching James Laws. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. You can also go to circles.com. That's circles with 2 I's. It's actually going to get rebranded to jameslaws.com. I'm working on that now. So if you remember jameslaws.com, you will also soon be able to find me there. But yeah, you can hit me up on any of those sources and reach out.
Perfect. And I'm gonna be just kind of following up too, just for me, because with this super app I'm developing, I'm gonna need a lot of advice. So this is good.
Happy to
Hey,
help.
guys, thank you so much for listening to the Headliners again, with my guest James Law. We appreciate so much for listening in. Thank you so much.